So, good morning, guys. Today we will be having a review on classes and objects in Java, in which we will be discussing today how to create a class, how to implement a class with its own methods, and also be using the objects that we have already created in order to formulate something that we can make use of in the near future. So I have already defined what classes are in our previous uh there were previous discussions, but I have never really touched on the topic or elaborated on the topic with much detail before. So now we will be orienting ourselves in how we create classes, how we are going to use them uh in our subsequent classes from now on. So first, in the definition of classes, there is a simple rule. It should always start with a letter, an underscore, or a dollar sign. It means everything that is listed here should be a legal class name. But remember, keywords are not valid class names. For example, um, you cannot not use this as your class names because it is already okay, wait. Let me fix things. How about that? Okay. So, don't worry, this will be available later as a video. So, I'm going to proceed. Now, we are going back to our topic. Uh, Reserved keywords, meaning those are which are already used by Java in order to declare things such as string, int, double, or even method names that are already reserved by Java cannot be used as class names. In general, if you are going to use a class name, it should be in the format we call as upper camel case. Upper camel case simply is a naming convention in which the first letter should always start at an uppercase. Then the next word should be also in uh, uppercase. In which it differs from object names in which object names usually is in lower camel case, in which lowercase in the first word, then uppercase in the next word. So now that we have already discussed about the basics of creating a class, um, as a demonstration, I would like you to create a project. It doesn't matter what the name is, but this will just be um, something that a self demonstration of our skill. So I would like you to create a new project. The name is up to ours. So let's name this. For me, I will name this. Uh, like this. I'll name this my last name underscore classes. So now, this is our first encounter of classes. So, what is classes, by the way? if you will see this tab, the name is main activity.java. The whole file itself is what we call a class. That's how things work in Java. It might not be the same for other computer languages such as, let's say, C or C++. Might not be the case for C or C++, but for Java, each file name is included in what we call a class. For example here, public class main activity. If we ignore other things here, such as this and this part, we will be discussing what extends is later on. So this is the class, main activity class. So we have already learned how to declare variables or objects, right? We've already created objects before, but we never actually thought about where to put our objects or our primitive data types. For example, we are accustomed already in creating our data types here. For example, we are going to create a string name was. For example, we are creating a string name equals Kevin DD Cardosa. Here, we can also create the same declaration at the class itself without actually interrupting each other. Sir, isn't it illegal to actually declare it twice? And the answer is no. What is currently happening right now, that's why there are two declarations of the same data type, is that if we declare it here, it means that the whole class can make use of string name. Meaning, you don't have to declare it anymore on create. It will be perfectly legal because it is already borrowed from the class itself. But if we still put here, it means that we are creating our own declaration of what name is. For example, let's name this. It means that the definition of name change on the onCreate method itself. So here, the meaning of name would be this. But if we go inside the method onCreate, which can be seen here, the meaning of name would change. It is Nizar Arjun here for this example. If you have any questions, guys, please type it in our chat so that I can clarify things to you. Anyway, you can invoke both of this at the same time. You can invoke this both at the same time. So let's just make use of this text view here. Let's just name this text display so that we can use it here. Let me declare the text view. Okay, I've already declared, meaning that I can manipulate the hello world here. So let's say, let's put name here. What do you think will display on the screen if we put name here? Any answers from the students? I have tried to display the variable name in the screen. What do you think whose name do you think will appear in the screen? Plus points on the quizzes on those who have managed to answer correctly. Okay. Bea answered Nizar. So let's try that out. So it displays the name of Nizar. Now, I'm going to remove this. Whose name do you think it will display? Whose name do you think it will display now that I will have removed the declaration of a string inside on create? Let's see. Let's rerun this. Okay, let's stop the app, then re-execute the app. As you notice, it would still display Nizar. So what is currently happening right now is that we have declared the name, the string name as my name. But once it reached here, we change the value of the name variable here, meaning it displays Nizar Arjun as its display. You can also invoke both at the same time. So, for example, here in this situation, I'm going to invoke both. For example, I will teach you more about this in Module 3. This will appear as a topic in Module 3. Uh, and let's add a spacer here. So, both names should appear in the text box now. We will be learning more about how we juggle around data more in our coming topics. So, going back in our lesson, Module 1, Lesson 1, we have examples on describing how classes work. So, classes allows us to create blueprint for specific objects. For example, here we have created a class called hero. So let's try doing that. Let's try to model our class according to what is uh what is on the screen, what is on the module. So if you open module 2, lesson 1, this picture should show up. Let's model our class according to that. So again, we are going to create a class now. So to create a class, first, open the project tab here. The project should show up here in the upper left. Right click here at the folder just below Java, then new Java class. It should be at the top most of new. Again, right click, new Java class. Now, let's name this according to what is currently being shown. The picture, let's type the name hero. So now we have created our own class called hero. So what do you think are the common statistics? I'm sure you're already familiar with role-playing games, right? Uh, Maybe you have played Final Fantasy. Maybe you have played some other role-playing game uh, during your time as a gamer. So let's try to uh, envision what are the statistics that we commonly use when we define a hero. For example, most heroes have, we call a level, right? So let's define level. So we can make use of level as an integer. We haven't heard a level called 1.5, right? It's usually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's define it as integer. So, of course, our hero should have a name, right? So let's try putting a string called hero name. Hero name. Maybe this one, let's change this to hero level. What other statistics could be useful in when creating a hero? Let's say the base health of the hero. So base health, meaning all it is the current health points of the hero, regardless of he has an item that adds HP points or coming from his stats. Usually stats also add HP, right? So let's just add it here. Another one would be uh you call this base mana or base mana points. Usually it also had little mana points there that can be modified later on. So other statistics would be included would be let's ignore other statistics for now. So let's go to the triad of statistics that you usually use in role play games. For example, let's define uh, agility. So let's say agility. We will declare it as double because the computations might need it to be in floating point. For example, some statistics might call it 13.2 depending. So let's just call the statistics similar to this. Double strength, double agility. You may call it toughness, you may call it whatever you want. So this is just how I declare it. Intelligence, then maybe the armor. This will be the basis for our turn-based game, okay? So it's better to have this prepared. Actually, I didn't use classes in the turn-based game. You can use the template that I provided in GitHub. The link can be found on our GC. So this is the most basic hero class that we have created. We have created the most basic hero class. So now, let's go back to the main activity that Java. We have already defined what hero class is. So how are we going to use the hero class that we have created? Let me remove the examples that I have created earlier. So how are we going to use the hero class? It is very simple. Remember how you declared primitive data types. You usually create something like this, right? String x is equal to uh, something like that, right? We usually declare it like that. So, upon declaring the hero class, it is actually the same. So, let's type hero. So, it should appear hero. Then, what would my declaration name would be? Let's name it clockwork. Clockwork. Let's name it clockwork. Then, new hero, meaning you are creating a new hero based on the class that you have created earlier. So that's how we declare hero. Take note of that. I think we can also remove this if we are going to declare that. This is the simplest way of how to declare a hero. So, how do we define the data, or how do we declare everything that is included here? So, for now, as a best practice, let's go back to hero and declare everything has a value. Because if we don't put any values on this, it means that it will become null. It will cause an error later on in our project. So let's put a zero value on everything. 0.0 for uh, double, 0 per for int, and it's just and put empty values here. This is important so that there will be less errors later on down the line because of non-initialized variables. So for here, we'll just put blank, something like that. We put blank. For integer, we'll put 0. For floating point, we'll put 0.0. Now that we have defined the hero clockwork, we can easily put data on it. So let's look for a suitable data in which we are going to put in here. For example, let's use an actual hero as a basis for the statistics of the our mock hero. So here, we will be basing our statistics on an actual hero called Clockwork. So, looking at it requires the name hero, the hero level, the base health, the base mana, as well as the agility values. So, let's start with defining what it already is here. So, Clockwork, then, what do we define first? Let's define its name. So, hero name is equals to, what's his name? Rattle Trap. So, let's name this Rattle Trap. So, so let's just put new hero here because I think it throw an error because we have not declared this properly. So, so now we have already included a name called Clockwork. Meaning if we are invoking the Clockwork, meaning the default hero name here should be Clockwork or Rattle Trap. Again, Clockwork dot. So what should we, let's say the level. Hero level should be level 1. Then, what other statistics that we can fill in? We can also fill in the base health and the base mana. So let's say clockwork dot base health. The base health should be 200. So let's say the base health is 200. Then clockwork dot base mana is equals to, what is mana? 75. Then his armor value, let's say, okay, his armor is 0. Armor is equals to 0. Because this is a double, you notice it will throw an error because it is double here. We should also define it as double. Now, the last statistic that we are lacking are the agility, the strength, and intelligence value of the hero. So, strength, the strength is 26. So, let's put in 26. 26.0, 13.0. Then, why did I? Okay. Then, lastly, the intelligence. The intelligence value is 18. Now we have already defined our own, or we have created a hero based on uh based on a template here, right? We have created, but what the amazing feature of creating classes is that you can reuse the same hero class that we have already created. For example, we are going to create our own hero. For example, hero, let's call this, let's call it taps. Then, meaning that we can put its its own value here. It's up to you how you create your own hero. So, I think that concludes the topic of creating uh, classes. Any questions before we move on to creating methods? Any questions you would like to clarify for creating methods? Sir, how do we display what we have created in classes? How do we display that? It is actually very simple. So let me zoom this in. For example, we want to display the name of the hero. So display that set text. Then, for example, who should be the hero that you want to be displayed? Let's say, let's say we will display taps. So just declare taps that hero name. That's it. That's how simple it is to display the values that is currently inside the classes. So, going back to our example earlier, so we have created two classes from the hero class itself. We have created two objects. For example, we created the object clockwork. We have also created the object taps, right? We have already also created the object taps. So now we are going to display this. So that's how we are going to display this. No questions before I move on to methods? No questions. Okay. Now we are going to proceed with methods. So, as what you can see here, we also have touched on what objects are in our enhanced calculator topic. So, for example, let's skip this here. There are some mechanics here in this game that can be used for our programming. For example, how do we calculate health? So, let's say, so there's another computation we can use. For example, for each point of strength, a hero gains 20 health. So let's use that for our formula here. We will create a method based on this single statement. For each point of strength, a hero gains 20 health. So let's go back here. Meaning, for a hero with 26 strength, he will gain 520 more health points, right? He should gain 520 more health points. Meaning, his total health should appear as 720. Now, we are going to create a method based on this simple statement. For each point of strength, a hero gains 20 health. So let's create that. Let's go back to hero class. So here in hero class, we are going to create a method it's up to us how we name it. So for me, I'm going to name it let's say void. Okay, I will orient you how to declare uh different what do you call this, different methods. So for now, let's create a simple method. So let's declare it int health, uh total health. Let's just name this total health. So in total health, because we are going to create a method, meaning it should have a return value. Return value means it needs to throw something at you. It needs to throw a value at you. So most of the methods usually have a return value, except for void, in which I will be explaining later on. So for int, it should have a return value that should be corresponding at the data type int. So for example, total health, what do we need? What variables do we need to create the total health? We are going to need the strength, right? We are going to need the strength. So let's say int strength. We're going to need the strength. We are also going to need the base health, right? So int base health. So in return, we could easily type the formula. So let's say the formula is, again, how do we compute it? For each point of strength, there should be 20 health. So it is simply multiplication. So strength times 20, right? So we now have the value. The, there will be an error that will appear later on. So stay put. So strength times 20. Strength times 20, which will be added to the base health. Okay. So in total health, I think what is it? Here's the error. Okay, I found the error. So so what do you think is the error here? Why do you think there is a red line here? If you read this, what do you think is the cause of the error? Again, I will be giving points to those who are capable of answering my question. In line 13 and line 14, you will notice there is a red line. There is an error. What do you think is the cause of it? No answers? Okay, I'm going to explain. So, the first one is that because this is double and this is int, you cannot directly create an operation based on this. Right? If we consider ourselves, you can easily compute strength times 20, then add the base health, right? But computer doesn't work like that because this this segment here is in double data type and base health is an integer. So first, we need to convert the strength into an integer, right? So how do we convert this into an integer? There is a simple way other than doing something like double or int. I've already taught you about this, right? Integer dot parse int, right? I've already taught you about this. But there is simpler way if we are going to declare this as is. Here is the simple way of doing this. Just put the word int here. Meaning, it will convert strength times 20 into an integer. That's what's happening here. We call this method casting. We call this method casting. So, the double strength becomes an integer when we put an integer here. So that's what's happening here. Okay? So, now we are going to display the health of clockwork. So let's display clockwork, the total health. Because this is an integer, this will cause an error. So let me convert this to, okay, it requires, so there's an error here. So it requires, what do you call this? Clockwork dot strength and base health. So clockwork dot strength, comma, clockwork dot base health. So because this is an integer, let's convert this to string. So string that value of uh I think I did the order wrong. I did the order wrong. Okay. So it should display now. Okay, I lack. Mhm. So it's not rerunning. Let me just stop the program and rerun it again. So now it displays the health 720. It should correspond with what is written here. So it means that our formula is correct. So let's go back here. Sir, is there a way to shorten everything? Because I think it is way too long. So now we are going to create what we call as a void function. Void method or void function or void method doesn't require a return value. Basically, you can imagine it as a black hole. It has a function, it has a method, but it doesn't require you to, it doesn't need to put out data. For example, void, uh, for example, a method called void attack. As you notice, it works as it is. There is no return value. But if we create something like int go attack, let's just name it like this, it will invoke an error, right? Because it needs a return value. So going back in our total health calculation here, as you notice, the code is very long. We can make it shorter by removing here. Let's go back to hero, uh, the method that we have created in total health. We can remove this here. Now, it will just calculate based on the values that is being written here. So now we are going to remove this. As you can see, we have stripped off several lines of code with this. We simplified everything. So now, let's re-execute the code. And everything is working as it was before. So later on down the line in our third module, we will be creating more and more of these classes. So for now, because we will be creating our own our own game by module 3, I would like you to create classes as a just a side thing, as a side project for you. Create classes in which you can define your own statistics, because eventually by fourth quarter, your your final exam will be creating your own game. So making use of these classes later, you can by now start by creating classes that you can maybe use down the line later. You can define your own statistics. For example, you can even add integer evasion. You can add statistics to your hero that doesn't even need to be conforming to most of the statistics here. You can make your own unique game. For example, integer evasion, maybe integer parry rate, how much your hero actually parries every attack. Maybe another computation for armor, for example, for every toughness statistics, you can even add more. Actually, as you notice, a lot of RPG games have more than 3 statistics, right? They even have toughness, they have vitality for the health, they even have a factor called luck. It's up to you. Just create the basis of our class later on, because there will be a hero class, there will also be a monster class. As I have already showed you, um there will be a monster class later on here. Um, this is based on our lessons last year. So I would like you to just prepare yourself for this. This is still a long way to go, but if you have time, or just as a hobby, or just for your experience, you can start creating your own classes based on how you would like your classes to appear to. Okay? Any questions before we conclude our class?